Alrighty. We shall see if this is flying this time. We keep trying. I don't give up easily. Alright. Now we'll have to find out once somebody gets on if there's sound. Can you hear me? Pam is here. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Pam? You can hear me. Still? Oh, now I got to echo. Nuts. That's on me that I'm an echo. Maybe not on you guys, but me I do. Let's see. Which one do I need to hit? Okay. How's that? You can see and hear me. This is a good thing. After last week, when I asked my son about what was going on once he got home, he's like, "Oh, did I not tell you on your mic that chord's all janky?" And I was like, "No, you didn't." And it was working fine before you started borrowing it. So got a new cord. So everything's cool. Discovered that the time before that I had it set on YouTube to private and not onto public. So operator error, children error. So hopefully we're running with full steam ahead. I still have an echo. Okay. Well, let me try this. Is there still an echo now? Okay, I'll just keep on talking. You can tell me whether there's an echo. But I don't know if the echo has been since I hit the button or not. So if you can, okay, now it's fine now. Okay. No echo now. That's what I thought. All right, so I need to have that button on and that button off. And then I'm going to have to make a note. So I keep it straight. But it's like that one on, that one off. Okay. Yeah, the problem with the delay is, okay, good. All right. Cool. Okay, thanks. So now I gotta get it up on my iPad. Always fun. Oh, there it is. Boom. As long as I just wait a second, now I can see my chat in front of me. So we're all good. Okay. So, feels like it's been forever. It honestly does. And in that time, the world has completely changed. But my main focus for this is let's just get together. Let's have fun. Let's enjoy this. I have a couple of rules that I am going to ask people to please. I'm going to make one little statement and then that's all I'm going to say about it. I'm just going to say, wear a mask, people. If you need a mask, email me, message me via Facebook, message me via Instagram, message me via Twitter, whatever you need to. If you need a mask, I will send you a couple. So I'm not making this political. If you need a mask, let me know. So, and then I'm going to leave that subject alone completely. And on that note, I am asking that in the chat, we all have different opinions. We all have different philosophies, thoughts, feelings. Especially right now, it's absolute insanity. So I am just asking that we have no politics. I mean, I've pretty much had this rule for the 11 years I've been doing this, but I do ask that we keep the chat clear from politics, religion, controversial subjects, any of that. Let's just craft today, and we can save that for other times and other places. So anyway, so anybody have any questions? Anybody who wants to talk about that in the chat? Bye-bye. So that's just, you will be removed if you head the chat in that direction. So hopefully people who come in will get that. But anyway, so what my plan is kind of going forward is to start doing live shows. I don't know how hardcore regular to a schedule I'm going to be, but I'm planning on the live shows. Is I want to do faster type of projects, maybe smaller bites, rather than larger projects with multiple parts. Those kind of projects I'm thinking I will be doing via recordings rather than the live shows. So I have plenty of ideas for things coming up. I have plenty of things that I'm working on for things that are current or past. But I think in terms of the live shows, this has the better potential to be workable for me. As well, most of you aren't really aware, but I've been struggling a lot, and I'm not afraid to talk about that. I think too many times when we're having, I don't know if it's necessarily a mental health issue, but it's been more of a mental thing than a physical thing that I've been struggling with. And what has usually been my go-to my entire life has kind of left me a bit. So my place of refuge has usually been in creative endeavors. And to a certain extent it still is, but it hasn't been in the paper stuff. I've been doing a lot of crocheting. I think it's a little bit more, it's focused on one part of your brain, but I don't have to create. It's just keeping my hands busy and my head busy. And that's been very beneficial. It's like giving my brain a break. Now, is that helping me in terms of catching up on stuff? No, and I'm sure there will be at least one or two more people who will email me, message me, whatever, and completely rip me a new one. It's happened multiple times, and I've got a pretty thick skin. I can handle it. But I can't give out what I don't have. So I've been taking a break because I've needed the mental health break. And so I also don't want to dive back in at such a level that it's not helping me. So I just want to ease into it. I'll try to give you enough warning when I'm doing a show. I'd prefer them to be Friday nights. I planned this one to be Friday night, but I realized it yesterday. I go, oh, let's plan it for tomorrow night. And then I realized yesterday was Friday, and I thought it was Thursday. So I'm planning to go back to my original days of Friday nights. I kind of got off the Friday nights when the hockey stuff came into our lives. But Friday nights worked for me for years upon years upon years. And I think it's been a good night. So I will probably go back to that as long as I can remember what day of the week it is. So, anyway, and I'm still going to be doing projects like what I've been doing for years, because those are things that people like, but I'm also venturing into other directions and different ideas and that sort of thing. So some of them you may embrace and want to try some new stuff. Some of them may be something you're not interested in. I may lose some of you, and for that I'm sorry. But part of growing is changing. And so that's kind of where I'm at. So doesn't mean I'm not going to be doing 3D projects. Doesn't mean I'm not going to be doing albums. But, when I first started, there was just a handful of us doing this. And now there's 5 kabillion people doing it. And so it's not like I'm leaving people 100% in the lurch, because there's plenty of others that are very, very similar to what I've done all these years. So, you'll be still in good hands. But I am still continuing on with many projects. So don't think I'm deserting it. And if there's something you're still, don't think I'm going to be abandoning that, because that's not the case. I'm not abandoning what I have been doing. I'm just adding, it's like adding another child into your family or something. It doesn't take away, it adds. And so that's kind of where I'm at. But for my own mental health, I have to keep growing and pushing and stretching a little bit. And so that's what I'm trying to do, rather than being stuck in the same rut where I feel like I'm a cookie cutter of everybody else that's out there. So even if I was the first cookie cutter, but anyway, that's kind of where my brain is right now. So I hope many of you come along for the journey. But again, I'm not going to say I am going to be on at 5:30 every Friday. That's I can't commit at this point to that often. I'm going to shoot for that, but it's not always going to happen, and I'll give you as much warning as I possibly can. So anyway, so that's my basic announcement. So I just want to have fun, enjoy all of you, and let's work on some projects that are a little faster, a little easier, a little more doable. And what I want to try to do with all of these projects is for them to be projects that you can do them in a very traditional fashion if you choose, or you can do them a little bit outside your box, maybe a lot outside your box. But that's going forward. I'm trying to hit more of a spectrum for people, from those who are more interested in something more traditional to those who are interested in something a little bit more pushing the envelope. So that's kind of where we are. So anyway, what I want to do at this point is I'm going to switch cameras and show you the project that we're going to work on today, and kind of go over some of the materials that I'm using on a lot of these projects that I have in my brain to be working on. I am trying to do them with projects that maybe you have around the house. Given that around the country and around the world, people are a little bit more limited in being able to go out and find materials, no matter what your circumstances are, or you may be in a situation to where finances just aren't there right now. So what I'm trying to do is use readily available materials, or maybe the materials that you have around the house. So on these live projects, I'm much more inclined for these to be free to you type projects versus projects that I have a tutorial for, or have kits for, something like that. I'm not at this point, I don't want to use the live shows as, a big commercial for me. So, but on that note, as a commercial, my papers, my digital papers, which I'm slowly working on some new ones. I haven't put out a new one in a few months now, but my digital papers and my patterns have all been on sale since we went into lockdown in the middle of March. So, and I think I will keep them on sale through at least the 4th of July. I mean, that's a pretty long time. And I think they're on like 20-25%. It's been so long, I don't remember what percentage off they are. And I have decided I'll go ahead and keep them on the reduced price through the 4th of July. And after that, I'll decide what I want to do on that. But so if there are tutorials, or as I've always called them, patterns, but if there's tutorials or digital papers that you're interested in, they are all on on sale. So anyway, all right, so what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and switch cameras, and then if we can check the sound, if either Pam or Joy, once I switch cameras, if you can make sure that my sound is like, and if not everybody if there's an echo or something, it's easier if it's just either Pam or Joy. Let me know rather than everybody jumping on and screaming that I'm an echo. So let's switch cameras and then we'll go from there. All right, so I just wanted to check and see, is the sound okay? So I will just wait to see if either Joy or Pam tells me the sound is okay, or if you cannot even hear me right now. Sound is fine. Okay, no echo, nothing. Woohoo! I love it. Okay, so let me smush that back a ways. Slide that so it's not so obvious without it tipping and falling off. So move this over just a squidge. So this was a project that I did for the Crafters Workshop as a project that was on the blog, not this past week, but 2 weeks ago. So 2.5 weeks ago, it was on the blog for the Crafters Workshop blog. The box that I used on this, to be honest, I meant to look up and see if they still had these available, but this little box is the ATC box from Graphic 45. It's craft color. I then just painted it with some black gesso, and then I did some stenciling on the top to kind of go with things. But you could use pretty much any kind of box, whether you make a box, and maybe one of these shows will make a little box or something, but you can either make a box or use a box, or maybe there's a paper mache box that you can get at a local store or the dollar store or something like that you could use, or you might even have a little box in your stash. If I know anything about all of you guys, is you guys have rather significant stashes. So but I know these boxes were from a few years ago. I'm not positive they still have the size. I know they have one that's a 5x7 that I know is still available, but this little ATC box, I'm not real sure. The size of the box itself is 3¼ by 4¼ So, but I know it's been a couple years. So excuse me, I'm not real sure, but so then I just have a tie to close it. I've done a quote, a stamped quote on the top with some extra paper that I've from when I've done the little journal inside. So I don't know if anybody wants to bebop over to the Graphic 45 retail website and see if they still have these small boxes. Like I said, I'm not sure. I know they have the 5x7 box, but as long as it will fit the little roll-up journal, it really doesn't matter what size the box is. But what I've done with this is I'm just calling it journal on a roll journal, roll-up journal. There's no super specific name. Many times these kinds of styles of journals have been done out of fabric. I remember them from 20 years ago when I was still quilting and stuff, that people would do these but out of fabric. So I wanted to play with doing some out of paper. I had been in the office supply store and saw adding machine tape, and it was like, hey, and so it was a 2-pack, so I went ahead and bought it. Now the machine tape is 2¼ inches wide, and it's, how many squillions of yards long. The G45 ATC boxes are still available. So these boxes you can still, and you can order direct from Graphic 45, and personally that's what I recommend doing, is getting directly from them. So you can order retails directly off of the Graphic 45 website. And like I said, they come in craft, and all I did was paint it with some black gesso. So this stuff you get, and you may have some. Otherwise, it is readily easy to find. Even the grocery store near my house has this once I went and looked for it. So it's just machine tape, adding machine tape, that sort of thing. So I then I take off a strip that's about 6 feet long. You can make it longer or shorter. I mean, it's kind of cumbersome when it gets that long, but it makes for a nifty project when it is that long like that. So, and then I'll talk about the process as we keep going, but basically I just want to show this. But what I've done is I have created some background with some texture, because this has some modeling paste on it, so there you can see some of the depth. So I've just taken and done a background, and then I've done some stenciling on top of it with the light and fluffy modeling paste. And then I use some stamped images as well, with some stamped quotes. We're going to do something a little bit different today, but some stamped quotes and some stamped images. So you can just kind of, I have another rolling type journal that we're going to be doing, and I have a whole bunch of other kind of journaling type of things to do as well, as I like doing the book-like stuff, but I'm leaning more towards, in the future, doing more journaling things and that kind of thing, and less for necessarily photos, but anything I do present can be either photos and or journaling. As prior to this kind of break that I've taken, at the end of 2019, I was moving towards projects, and also the first part of 2020, or 2020, was the photo journals that were kind of a hybrid between a journal and a photo album. So the photo journals, I'm going to be continuing along with that. As I mentioned, I think on National Scrapbook Day, with the photo journals, I'm doing the A to Z journals, where the A version is a very basic version, the M version, because they are simply amazing, A to Z journals. The A is the basic, the M is the more of a medium level, and the Z is the soup to nuts, can be full on mixed media type journal, but with the same design. You can do something as basic as all you need to do is mat the pages to a fully involved mixed media using that same design. And in the future, that's what I plan to show you, is so you can choose anywhere along that spectrum that you want to be. So but this one is much more of a mixed media, though you could simplify it down. If you're not wanting to do the stenciling and the paints and all that kind of stuff, you totally could do this just potentially with just some stamping and some moderate type of painting. So again, using some stamped images and quotes, and just rolling right along. Again, more of the stamped stuff until we get to the end. So there's like, in this length, I did like 3 or 4 areas of more journal type things with some stamped. You could handwrite if you choose, but I know I would say about 90% of us don't like our handwriting. So, and you need to get past that, because just as much as telling the stories to the future generations and showing the photos to the future generations, it is definitely wonderful to preserve your handwriting as well. I had my mother-in-law several years ago, before the dementia really took over. I had her write out recipe cards of, she's always made Christmas cookies, tons and tons of Christmas cookies at Christmas. And so I had her write out all of her favorite recipes for Sarah to have. Of course, Sarah can't read them because they're all in cursive, but that's a whole other story. But at least we have them, and they are in my mother-in-law's handwriting. I have a Bible that was my great grandmother's Bible, and it's got her handwriting in there. And that's so precious to me. That's as precious as any photo, is that I have something that came from her hand. So, somewhere along the line, get over the fact that you don't like your handwriting and have it preserved somewhere for those future generations, because I think that's important. So, alrighty. So, anyway, and then I just did a little finished end on each end, added some fibers in there. But so it's just a rolling little journal. You can have much more writing, much less of the patterns and prints. You know, I was making this as a project for TCW, which is, you know, a stenciling company. So obviously I was featuring the stenciling. So you could do as much, you know, or as little of the backgrounding type stuff that's on there. So just kind of roll that up, and it's ready then to go into the box. I'm not really going to go over the box, other than I use the same stencils that I used on the journal on up here on the top of the box in the same color palette, and then use some scrap, because I tested a few things on some scrap little pieces of this, because it's cheap, it's easy to use, and then just stamped a saying on there. So and that's just gonna fit then down inside. So now for the materials, I already decorated a box for today's project, because it was really more focusing on the journal itself to go in the box than it was on the box. And this one has all sorts of layers on it. I did some tissue on it that had some kind of just typewritten looking stuff, so I did some of that on there. It originally started out, it was gold, metallic gold gesso, and then I've done some sprays. I added a whole bunch of texture to the outside, the wax finish to the outside. It was just one of those kind of plain kind of things, and potentially down the road we might do one of these kind of mixed media things, just a box, because it can just be a little trinket box. Here I used a technique that I learned from Seth Apter, where I've used some of his beeswax embossing, and then while it's still hot, I stamped an image with ink on it into the top, let it cool, and then pop. Yeah, you have to do this with rubber stamps versus acrylic, but it gives a really cool little image up there on the top. So I went ahead and did the box in advance. But to prep your paper roll, what I used then was, like I said, I did about 6 feet long. Let me check and make sure there's no questions first. Does a paste crack on what? The box? No, because it's not under any stress being on the box. The paste that I'm talking about that I use, my very favorite, is the light and fluffy modeling paste. Now I do have to say, per FTC or FCC rules or whatever it is, I do get products from TCW as a member of their design team. I have 2 more projects to go, and then I'm done with them. They've been delightful, but I do receive this stuff for free. But the opinions I have about it are my own, and if I didn't like it, trust me, I wouldn't be showing it to you, and I wouldn't be promoting it. So I love this stuff. It's kind of like, it's like icing to me, is what the texture of it. And it's flexible. Even when it's dry, it's somewhat flexible, so it does not crack. I guess it was on here, but no, it doesn't crack on here, because you can see it's flexible. So I can't say the same may be true for every kind of modeling paste. I know the regular TCW modeling paste doesn't crack either, but in terms of other brands. I don't know for sure. You'd have to kind of experiment. But as you can see, this is very flexible, and I have no problems with it. It doesn't crack. It doesn't peel off. Even if I try to peel it off, it doesn't peel off. So, but no, it's super flexible, and it's not an issue for this project anyway. But, and I know other manufacturers have a similar product to this one, but like regular modeling paste also has a flexibility to it as well. So hopefully that answered your question. Oh, they have these boxes already. And thank you, Christine. They have them in black and ivory. So they probably don't have the craft one, but you can paint it then any color you want. But so that sounds like they have them in black and ivory. Then you wouldn't even have to paint it if you wanted it black. But excuse me. Anyway, as usual, it's allergy season, and they've been horrible this year. So anytime you sneeze or cough with a mask on in a grocery store, you get death stares, and it's like, people, it's allergy season. Literally want to rip my eyeballs out right now. So, hey, cut me some slack. I don't have the plague. So anyway, with your rolling strip, you're going to want to give it a coat of, I use clear gesso. If you don't have clear gesso, you can use white gesso as well, and cover it as much as you can. I do about the length of my my nonstick mat. I do it about that long, and then I dry it with my heat tool, and then I'll come down, and then I'll dry it with my heat tool, and then I'll come down and dry until I reach the very end. So, and then let it dry before you roll it up, because otherwise it'll all stick to itself. So I did 2 of them so that I was well prepared for today. But I do have clear gesso on here. I only put it on one side. If you want, once it's dry, you could put some on the other side as well. But it's not like this is going to be taking a lot of stress. But it just depends on how much handling you think your journal is going to take. If you think it's going to be getting a lot of handling, go ahead and cover it on both sides. But it's going to have paint and paste and all sorts of other stuff on it as well, and so it makes it pretty sturdy. So but and this paper of this adding machine tape is about the weight, maybe it's a little slightly thinner, but it's about the weight of just copier paper. And I've been doing a lot more stuff lately on copier weight paper, because you can manipulate it a little bit more than you can cardstock. So, we may be reimagining a few things in the future rather than always doing it onto cardstock. So anyway, that's where we're at on that. So some other things that I would just kind of want to go over the supplies and materials real quick that I've been using. Is that the other thing that we're going to be using is, I'm going to be using a gel press. This is the small size. This is 5x7. It still has a Hobby Lobby sticker on it. So this is readily available at Hobby Lobby. You can also order them off of Amazon and multiple different craft places. I haven't until recently been playing much with the gel presses, but they're way cool. They're, warning in advance, they're extremely addictive because it's really hard to screw things up with them. Even if you turn something into mud, you can pull it back and actually make it pretty cool. So I am by no means an expert at the gel press. There is like 5 billion YouTube videos about all sorts of cool things that you can do with a gel press. I highly recommend, if you're interested in one, is watch some of those videos. But I do not profess to be an expert at all. So, but if you do not have a gel press, as you know, I always come up with something as an alternative. You may have in your pantry some plastic bags. This is your basic Ziploc lunch style plastic bag. And so we're going to show you how you can make this journal even without a gel press. You could just use a plastic bag, which chances are most of you have. The other thing to go along with your gel press is, where did it go? Oh, there it is. It's out already. You need a brayer. Brayers are pretty easy to find. So hopefully you might have something like it. An alternative to a brayer are a little bit more challenging, but you can do it also with a brush if you don't have a brayer. But brayers are a great tool. So that's part of what we're going to be using. Then I also stencils. Again, you don't have to have stencils, but so I just, again, these are ones that from the Crafters Workshop. They send them to me. I get these for free. So, but again, my opinion about them are my own. So I've just pulled out kind of a random selection that I might want to use. I pull them out and then I forget to put them back in the packaging things. I'm also, if I use them with acrylic paint, I don't wash them, and that's pretty much a consistent thing I found with a lot of people. They don't wash paint off them. If you use modeling paste or anything like that, you definitely want to wash them. So I have a tub of water sitting here for when we use the modeling paste, but I just pulled up a variety of different ones so that I had them. Here's some ones with textures and shapes and squirrelies and those things, and mandalas and more shapy thingies and more squiggly thingies. And those are 6-inch ones. I also have some 12-inch ones. Some of them are the same things, just in the larger scale. Crafters Workshop has squazillions of different stencils. If you have no stencils, you can do it with no stencils if you choose. That's the fun part of playing with like gel plates and stuff. You don't have to use stencils. I have them, so I'm using them. I have a variety. There's some rub-ons if you want to use some rub-ons, some stamps, some more stamps, and some background stamps. Here's that dragonfly. I just pulled out a selection. Then if you have some quote stamps, you can use those. And then I pulled out a bunch of butterflies and dragonflies. So, kind of go with a thematic thing. And then if you don't have quotes that match up with what you're trying to say, then the alternative to that, I know, are you like shocked? I have this stuff all together in a little basket and everything. That's why I was so frustrated. I was just so in tears last week because I had everything all pulled together, everything all ready, everything was set to go, and then I couldn't get the mic to work. Coffee filters, because I love the texture of this. This is a great way to add some texture to things, that sort of thing. So I have my little basket of goodies. But if you don't have sayings or quotes on stamps, you can also I went on Pinterest and in about 2 minutes found a bunch of quotes that I liked, copied them, pasted them onto another sheet, and then I can either use these quotes just cutting them out, or I can cut out the individual words, that sort of thing. So you can pull up things just off of like Pinterest. Because I pulled these off of Pinterest, I'm not going to make these available. And these are quotes that spoke to me. So you need to come up with quotes and words that speak to you. If you find the quotes and you want to handwrite them, you can do that as well. But if you want to cheat, go ahead and print them out. But I just went on Pinterest and found a bunch of quotes that I liked, and put them on a separate sheet and printed them out, because these are quotes that spoke to me in the moment, and so these would probably be the ones that I will use rather than the stamped ones. But this one I use stamped quotes on. So and then in terms of paints and ways of making marks and that sort of thing, I just use, the inexpensive liquid acrylics. They're cheap, they're easy to find. They're like anywhere from $1.99, $1.59, $2.59. And you're probably going to want a palette of 3 to 5 colors. I also like to throw in, like you may have seen on this one, as it pops in here and here, is I've been really into popping in with some, I don't know where's my fluorescent green, but popping in with some fluorescent colors. Just these little hot little splops of it, just tiny little dots of it. It really pops. It doesn't show on camera as fluorescent, but it looks fluorescent in person. But just throwing a little hot spots of and I'm storing these upside down, because at the top they all look the same, and on the bottom you can see what the color is. So I have a tub with all of my paints in the tub. Over so you can see what I'm talking about. Oh God, it's heavy. So I just have my tubs with them all stored upside down. You can also then see what colors you're kind of lacking. I have a lot of pinks and purples tones. There's some blues, greens, but then it's easy. They're already then ready to go because they're down at the top. But if they're all stored this way, the dot helps, but it's a lot easier to see what color it is that way. So you could also use tube liquid acrylics. You can use, there's what's called heavy body, which have a thicker consistency. You can use those as well. I have a couple of tubes just because it was the color I wanted more than anything. There's any number of brands. Seth After just came out with some new ones with Paper Artsy that I've ordered but haven't gotten yet, and they're more of a chalk type of paint. And even Walmart has some chalk type paints that are inexpensive. And this is one of the wax covers, and I've used that just to add some after it's painted, just to add kind of a finish over the top. You can also use oil pastels and distress crayons. There's other kinds of brands of different crayons, but the crayons and oil pastels are another way to add some color and more of a mark type thing, less of a painting type thing. There's, any kinds of markers, white markers, that sort of thing, that you can add interest. Sprays, any of the sparkly sprays. I'm into the Distress Oxide sprays right now, so this is kind of the color palette I'm thinking is doing blues, purples, aquas for today. So using the Distress sprays, and I like them because they have a matte kind of finish versus I don't always want a glimmery type of finish like I do get with the Lindy's. And though Lindy's does have some that don't have the glittery, sparkly stuff in them. But the oxide sprays are easy to find right now. The Distress ink sprays, not so much, unless you order them. But the oxide sprays are kind of the in thing right now, so they are much easier to find. If you're so inclined, you can use alcohol inks and alcohol markers if you want. I'm tending to kind of stick more to the water-based type stuff. It's a little easier to manipulate. This one I haven't opened yet, so. And then you'd also are going to need a nonstick mat of some sort and brushes. And, these kind of brushes work really great. This one is my favorite brush, and it's like falling apart almost. But the bristles are still good, but it gets left. Brushes have to be really tough because I leave them sitting in water forever. I just buy inexpensive brushes because, when I buy good brushes, this is what I do to them. So, these guys are like, you can get 6 of them for like $2. And then when they die, you're not so concerned. So, fat brushes, skinny brushes, these kind that are stamping brushes. I have some that are skinny brushes. I actually try to protect these because they are tiny. So any number of kinds of brushes, you can kind of collect those. Having the Tim Holtz ones to do splatter with, those are cool. So, it kind of comes down to playing a bit with the brushes to find out what you like. Only I have a Goldie stick in my thing of brushes. Okay, I think that's from some sort of ornament, but once a hockey mom, always a hockey mom, I guess, is how that all works. But anyway, so having, brushes, distress inks, distress oxide inks, whatever your favorite kinds of inks. When you're stamping, I'm inclined to use more of a pigment ink so that if you do anything wet media over the top or near it, it doesn't bleed. If you use a distress ink for anything like this sort of thing, it is going to bleed, obviously. If you have something that you're putting down, you can also, let me grab it. I gotta stand up to get into it though. Of course it's not on the top there. I knew I was missing getting something out. If you need something that you don't want it to get messed up, you can also use Distress Glaze. If you put this over the top of it, you just put it on with your fingertips just on the top. It will give it a kind of a protective coating so that it won't smear or get wrecked, kind of thing. So this is a good thing to have in your little bag of tricks. Also having the waxes, way back, we were using different kinds of waxes. In fact, I don't remember. And then we had to use mineral spirits on them and all that. But now that everybody else jumped on that bandwagon, and Finnabar has these, there's a couple other places that have them as well. So they're much more easy to find than years ago when we were using these. But those are cool to add kind of a metallic sheen to things. You can always add fibers, ribbons. The other thing is using foil. You don't have to have a heat press kind of method to use foil if you want to add some metallic accents, because TCW does have a paste, sticky when dry paste that you can use with foils. So there's embossing powders that you can use, any number. There's a squillion jillion different things that you can use. And I have not, Gilder's paste, that's what it's called. Thank you, Joy. So I've not been looking at, I do not have the new Robin's Egg yet. I definitely want to get the new, that's the newest color from Tim Holtz's Robin's Egg. I don't have it yet. I should, but I don't. So, anyway, whatever you have, whether it's a big assortment like I've got or a tiny assortment, you can do this kind of project with whatever you may have on hand. So anyway, is there any questions before I get rolling on this? I know we've lost a couple people because I've talked too much, but if you're hearing weird noises, my husband is just on the other side of my studio wall, on scaffolding, painting or cleaning and getting ready to paint the dining room wall. It's a 2-story space, so he had to rent some scaffolding. So he's like 14 feet in the air right now. So no questions at this point? All right. Now, because I want to move this around a bit, I have an older mat that I've cut up into pieces because I use it for like embossing and that sort of thing. So a gel press is cool stuff. It smells funny. It smells good though. It's kind of like sniffing my my score tape. So when it's fresh out of the package. Warning, it's kind of like score tape. I'll sniff it. So those who've been around for a long time know that fresh score tape I have tended to sniff for years. So okay, nobody has questions. So about supplies, that sort of thing. And like I said, you don't need everything that I've shown you. I'm just showing you some of the things that I have that are an option available to you. So with a gel press, you can use, as I said, I'm no expert at this. So by all means, there's many experts on YouTube, and you can watch videos for days upon days upon days of gel press. I just play. And then when I can't figure something out, then I'll go look on YouTube and go, oh, okay, well, good. I already figured it out. So, okay. So, but what's fun is you don't have to have a plan. The biggest thing to remember with jelly press is whatever you put down first is what's going to be on the top. So I had a part that doesn't have stuff on top of it, but what color I put down first is what's going to be on the top, because of it's called a monoprint. And what a monoprint is mono meaning one and print means you're printing it. So a monoprint is a single print versus if you're printing something off a printing press, it does multiple prints of the same thing, whereas a mono is a single print. So whatever we're going to put down first, that'll be on the top. So we're just going to do this super simple. As I said, I want to do some kind of purples and blues. I know that Lois is probably not here because I know it's a little bit late for her, but she'll probably watch this later. So in honor of Lois, I'll go ahead and do some purples. Maybe throw a little aqua in there. So I'm just pulling a palette of some colors out. Make sure you have a light, a medium, a dark somewhere in there so you can get some contrast. And the big thing is to remember is don't just keep mixing them together till you come up with mud, especially if this is more what's called an analogous color scheme, where it's colors that are close on the color wheel. If I were doing like blues and I wanted kind of rust tones in there, if you keep rolling it with you keep just mix, you'll end up with a nice mud color, which is fine if you're looking for a nice mud color. But if you're not looking for a nice mud color, probably not what you're wanting. So less is more. So all right, so I'm just going to take and just squirt some. Oh, this one's not even open yet. I just got some new colors. Now this stores around here are slowly opening. We're in phase, I think we just went into phase 2, but I don't know, we might have been yanked back to phase 1. I don't really know at this point. I don't go out unless I absolutely have to. So and I also have notoriously been over the years as I just open it up this way, but I'm trying to do it more squirting so I don't use quite so much. So some of these I've had, and there might be half empty bottles, but I haven't opened the top part yet. Just because I don't use them the way I should. Now, let's see if I can do this without. I don't want to chop any hand parts off. But I like keeping them upside down because I have a better idea of what color it is. So I'm just going to squirt into a little of this one. Probably shake them up a little bit. Oh, let's do this one. It's purple, yeah. Just throw little blops. Okay, then I'm going to take, now this has one where when it sits this way, it's got these little feet that it can sit on, so it's not sitting on my mat. But so you want to turn it over, because if you leave the feet down, it doesn't roll as easily. So, and just don't want to do too much. So even if there's little holes in there, that's fine. Now, at this point, I could actually print this onto my paper, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my stencils and put some stencil on there, and so that then I can that will give me some stenciling on there as well. So just plop it down there. Then if I roll over it over the top, it will change what is exposed on the stencil, but not change what's under the stencil, if that makes sense. So then I can take my paper, and I can get 2 strips out of this tiny little guy here. So I can lay him down on this, and it's going to give a subtle texture of what's on the stencil. See, it's going to give you that subtle. So I'm going to roll down this way. Okay, that part wants to be on there. But you know what? It doesn't have to. There's no exact. So it's okay to not be perfect. This is the hardest thing I have because I'm a little bit more controlled. But let go of control and just let it happen. So there's some strips of it. So now what I can do is lift this off, maybe unroll a little bit further. Okay, that's going to be tricky because my iPad is right where this wants to be. So let's set the iPad up there. So this is going to have a little bit more paint on it, but you can still see some of that texture from my stencil. Maybe I'm going to set that on there again. Maybe I want a little bit more of a darker color. Right on top of the stencil, I can add a little drop. This is really more about playing and having fun with that than it is about anything else. So just be aware, though, this thing is long and it's flopping around. So see how that gives a cool, and then I can lift this up again. Maybe pull a different section, maybe even overlap it a little bit. Do it on an angle. So see how it gives you some light areas, some darker areas. So maybe I'm gonna, you can also wipe it off if you're done with kind of having that color, so I can have a little bit more of a little bit more backgroundy kind of thing. Maybe add some right in there. A little light bit. do another one here, maybe. I give some more. And just, see how it's just staying in the palette. All I'm trying to do is kind of create more of a background kind of thing. Maybe this goes on this end here. Leaving the stencil down, so it's going to give me some of the texture from the stencil, but it's also going to give me some, lighter bits. And if I pull the stencil off at this point, it's not as clear of an image at that point, but that's all okay. It's a little bit more mushy on that part, but that's okay. So how quick and fast that was, and I've got pretty much the entire 6 foot length with some ink on it. Maybe get a little bit down there. There's a spot right there that maybe I want to add a little more to. Corner. A little more there. Maybe down at this end. Alright, so that kind of gives me a good background bit on it. Whoops. And it wants to run away. So I'll hold that in place. And I'm going to grab some baby wipes and wipe this off. You can wash your gel plate off with soap and water, or just water even. But I'm just going to wipe it off with a baby wipe until I can get to it to clean it more carefully. It's easy to clean up though. So it just kind of gave me some background. Alrighty, so then I'm going to need to dry my The beauty of using these liquid acrylics like this is they do dry very quickly. You see, I've just got a variety of textures. It's all pretty much dry already, but now for where I potentially want, if I want to do some stamped images, and there's like, I kind of want to figure out, let's see, where do I potentially want to do some stamping or that sort of thing, because then I can pull out my I'm going to use my white gesso just because of, and I'll show you in a minute using the, once I get this white gesso, while I let that dry, then I'll show you how to do the same sort of thing with a plastic bag. But with some white gesso and a palette knife. If I want to make some areas like, it's like, maybe there's an area that's like, I don't kind of like how that ends there so abruptly. So I can take my white gesso on my palette knife and let it kind of feather out. But put that on there, because then that's going to be a place where I can stamp some image, or maybe put my stamp my quotes or something like that. Here's another spot that it's like, it's a little abrupt, so just adding some white on there. So see how I did with that, and that just kind of softened the edging down. And you know what? If it folds over on itself and gets some color somewhere else, it's not a super big deal. I do many times have taken and folded it back this way. That's probably the biggest challenge most people are going to have, is just having this be kind of cumbersome to work with unless you have a really long table. But this just gives you some areas that maybe you can do your maybe stamps or something. So I mean, don't get too over exuberant about when you think it's about right. It probably is, so stop. So we're going to let that dry for a second, and I'm going to show you on the plastic bag how you can do the same sort of thing as a jelly press. So let me drape this where it can dry. So then I'm just going to take a zip bag. I've got another roll ready to go that's already gessoed. So I can take some of my paint, just like I did. I didn't want that much light blue. Oh well, we got light blue. So, and we can do the same sort of thing here. So you've kind of got the same sort of thing. I can do the same bit with like stamps, or not stamps, stencils. So let's take this one and plop that down. Maybe roll over it a little bit. And then I can take, and now I'm doing it on the side that I've gessoed. I only gessoed one side, so I'm just going to do this on the side that I gessoed. So same sort of thing. So it gives you a similar effect. So you don't have to race out and buy a jelly plate if you don't have one. Similar here on this. So you can see how it's going to give you a similar sort of thing to create a background. And you're just using a zip bag, and when you're done with it, you can just go bloop, bloop, and toss it. The other cool thing is, though, you could keep it and let it dry. If it doesn't have all this writing on it, it's just the plastic part, and you could keep that and cut it out and use it for something. But so just using a paper bag or a plastic bag, easy to find at the grocery store, inexpensive, so gives us very, 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 very similar effect to a gel press. I do a 6 foot long. The first one I did was 9 feet long, and that was very cumbersome. So I 6 feet is about the longest I personally recommend using. I wouldn't go longer than that. So dry this. I'll probably finish this one off. See, I thought you guys were all going to go, wow, cool, with the plastic bag, but you didn't. That's okay. Squash me. Just squash me. It's okay. I thought I was going to have you going ooh and ah. That's right. Keep me humble. That's good. That's sort of dry. I'll set it over there. Let me wipe off mine. I'm such a miser. See, I use paper towels for my toaster strudels in the morning, and then I save them to so rather than using fresh, brand new paper towels, I use my I shake all the crumbs off. I'm so terrible. But when we were having a hard time finding paper towels, I saved them then for my crafting. Whoops. Thank you, Christine. Stroke my ego. I needed that. And I find it's hard to do. It's hard to stop and take a second. But if you take a second and clean stuff up, you will be happier in the long run. Okay, so okay, let's finish drying this a little bit more. If you don't have a heat tool, you can use a blow dryer for drying paint. Obviously, you can't emboss with a blow dryer, but you can dry paint with a blow dryer. And I use the gesso rather than white paint because the gesso will give better coverage over a painted surface than just white paint will. If you still, you can also use your fingers as well. So I always have a towel. These look really nasty, but I always have a towel that's on my lap as well to wipe my fingers off, because otherwise I end up wiping it on my pants, and gesso doesn't necessarily wash out of your pants, or never look on the underside of my table because there's so much glue and paint from my fingers on the underside of the table. Give it a good dry. Now I'm going to set these colors off to here to the side. I want to put them away in case I need them, but just set those off to the side. And now I'm going to take some other stencils. Maybe I'll use some of the smaller ones. This is where I'll bring in, and this is where I need to have my water available, because with the paste, oh, it's a cool one. Let's do that. Maybe let's do that one. Cool, that one might be kind of cool. That's a smaller version of what we did. I'm kind of liking more of those kind of shapes. Maybe I'll have one dot one. I mean, don't get too excessive with your images. Just a couple. Too much and it gets a little too busy. So okay, let's switch out. I'm putting that there to hold because it's long enough that it doesn't quite reach the floor, which is what part of the reason where it's also at the 6 feet, because if I have about 4 feet on my table and then a little over 2 going down. So, and for those who are asking, this one's called Distress Lace TCW 803. And also on stencils, and this is true not only with TCW stencils, but other stencil manufacturers, they usually have engraved somewhere on here is the stencil number. So if you lose the packaging and you go, oh my god, I don't know what stencil is, the number's on there, as well as, for instance, Crafters Workshop has their name on here and the number. So with this, I'm going to use my light and fluffy modeling and my and this is just an inexpensive plastic palette knife. But see, this is consistently is very much like frosting, like whipped frosting. So I'm going to just, and I don't want, I can go all the way to the edge, but I don't want it ending right up against there because I don't want a super hard edge on it. So scrape off some. Now there's 2 ways that you can add color to this. Well, actually there's 3. You could add paint to the in a small amount to the modeling paste. It is white, so it will soften your color down. You can spray on top of it, which is what we're going to do, and then I'm going to show you, and when we do another section, you can also brayer some color onto the top of it or paint it on top of it as well. So let's go with the, down here, let's go with the purple. I'll probably do a little bit of the blue too, so let's shake them both up. You can also use, if you want more of a glimmery look, you can use like Lindy's sprays, any kinds of sprays that you have. If you hate it, thumbs down, me too. I get plenty of those, but those are fine. But thank you, Darlene. I never ask for, I don't really, to be honest, pay much attention to the thumbs up or thumbs down, other than, oh, okay, well, whatever. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I kind of like how this comes out kind of splotchety. So then at this point, then I can just lift it up. And it gives me that stencil, and it's got a little bit of texture to it as well. So that stencil had a little bit more open area, so you can see the colors. And then I think I want to do the same, a little bit more of it, since so I can just use the same stencil before I have to clean it off. Now when I do this, it'll be, oh, wrong one. That's the gesso. I'm going, why is it so hard to open? I thought I had it open. So I'm going to take a little bit more of my paste, especially if I use a section that I had sprayed already. When I put the paste on there, it'll get some of that, pick up some of that color. So I don't know if you can see how it's got some color. It's hard to lift up right in, but I don't want to put that back in my tub. Let me see if ugh. So see how it kind of smeared some of that color around? So maybe then I'm going to do just a little dabble spritz of this one. It's just going to kind of give it an overspray of a little bit of the green. So then you can see where I've then given it some of that. So, you know, if you're thinking, oh, the background was kind of but by adding this stuff on top of it, it's giving it some more layers. But I want to leave some open areas where I'm going to do some stamping and that sort of thing. So you will find you will have a much easier time if I put the lid on this. if we dry it a little bit. You don't want to put a lot of heat on any modeling paste because it can puff up. And this stuff will puff up unless that's a look you're looking for. I mean, it's not like puff paint that it's going to puff up and stay puffed up, but I definitely want it to dry, at least get the paint part dry, so that as I move along, it's not going to get totally smeared and messy. Does anybody have any questions just yet? Okay, so we'll kind of move along to another section. Maybe I'll bring in, I'll probably only end up using like 2 stencils. Maybe I'll throw a little bit of that one in there, but I don't like it to get too much more busy. So maybe like right in here. Again, I don't want to go tight up to that edge. If you wanted to just, let me see if I can do this and lift it up. You could have it just be white. Actually, I kind of like that, so we're just going to leave. I like that just being white. Okay, let me throw this in the water because I don't want my paste to dry on there. So I have a tub. Let's see if I can dump this over on my keyboard. That would not be good. Okay, dump that into the water, but just having it be white kind of ties in with the white, and I like that. So maybe with this one, I'll keep just little sections of white with this stencil and do the color with the more florally kind of one. So maybe down here where there's some, right here it's kind of blah. So maybe I'll throw some of, which side did I do it on? Throw some white in here so it kind of ties in where that white gesso piece is. So yeah, no, I like that, doing that with the white, and then it kind of ties in with these little dot dots. I mean, it's serendipitous that it worked out that way, but I like how the white goes on there. So let's back up to here, throw a little bit of, a little dabble-do of the white here because I'm liking it. See, you experiment and you don't know what you're going to like on it until you know what you're going to like on it. That sounds real smart and brilliant. But yeah, just kind of toss little bits in there as you go along. Maybe one more right around down in there. So I gotta back up and dry this part or else I'm gonna mess it up. One thing too, if you're used to having your cutting surface, your self-healing cutting surface, do not have that on your desktop when you're using your heat tool. You will warp it and you will never get it flat ever again. So just be aware if you're used to having that on there all the time. But you know, as you can see how quickly this is going, you can do multiples. If you don't like them, you know, go on to the next one. You don't have to stay married to the one you do. You know, if you don't like it, this stuff is like mega cheap. I think it was like $2.79 for 2 rolls. So that's still it. And then I'll go back in and do with the other one that did I just throw it? I threw it in the water, didn't I? Yeah, I did. Okay, well, I'll have to pull it back out. Also, if you hold it up in the air, it dries faster because then it gets air underneath. See, I hadn't even thought about doing, the white on here, but I love how that works because it ends up the background becomes the swirls and the white becomes the background. I love how that works. So just dry that a little bit. Oops, don't put my stencil underneath it while you're drying because it'll work your stencil. Because the stencils are plastic. Probably shouldn't put this in the water just yet. But that's what towels, my grunky towels, are for. Washes off pretty easily, but it's much quicker and easier than having to run into a sink all the time to just have water here in a tub. So let's see. I like that, so I'm going to leave that. So I'm just going to kind of come in here on this corner. I mean, fortunately with this has a straight edge along here, but along here it's not a super straight edge of the stenciling cutout part. So I'm fine with being close. It's always a good idea whenever you're doing spraying of anything, to cover things so you don't want color in. Set that back close so it's not over my desktop. And I just barely press on it, so it's more getting me splatter than anything. I can also smear it a little if I wanted to with my craft knife. Maybe even just in sections like that, rather than leaving it just spritzily. If spritzily is a word. So that gives me some kind of cool bright colors there at that end. There's a good section right in here. Before I take my palette knife and put it in my clean stuff, wipe the goop off. Probably end up using that for something, so I'm going to leave that on the palette knife. Pop of green. This is that cracked pistachio. Woo! That was more than a pop, but that was okay. Good to have some intense color in there, here and there. So that's a lot more intense, which is cool. Where else do I want to throw some of that? Got a couple spots down there. Maybe we'll pop out just a squidge a little. Maybe I'll get that on that so that I can then set this here. Give some background. I like that little bright. The closer, the more intense. Maybe splipple, just a tiny splipple. Come on, just give me a little dripple. Dripple. Okay. I just want a little dripple. So we'll just do that. Gives me that little dripple. It dripples like a doodle. So it gets a little bit. There's a little splapple of color. So let's rip that off. Alright, so there we've added some sections that are a little bit more intense color. We've got some texture. It's hard to see on camera. I hold it up and the light kind of blows it out a little bit, but it just kind of gives some cool background. So let's throw these two in the water so they can not dry on there. So maybe with this I can use a little bit. This is where it's okay. I can go ahead and close this up because I'm done using that. I can use some of the cracked pistachio, which is the green spray. So I can use a little bit of that in an ink to, with this stencil, maybe add just a couple of little places. Throw a little bit of the green, maybe some little dot things there. Since we had some dots in the one stencil, there's some little dot thingies there, so we can add, and, you know, scatter it along. You could also do the same exact thing with some of the paint as well. It's kind of just, this is kind of a go with your gut kind of technique more than anything. So now I need to dry a little bit. Before I smear it into a mess. But you can, you know, use any kind of color palette that speaks to you. And just play. It's inexpensive and easy to, you know, if it starts turning into mud, put it aside and do something else. You can bring in, set it aside, and you can bring it back later and maybe add a completely different color onto it. And it's, you know, you can totally salvage something. One of these times what I'll have to do is I'll do something that's kind of like a mud failure or something and show you how you can save it. That would be a good class, how to save mud. Well, go back to the thrift store, darling. But it's nice having some areas that have a lot of interest in dark, intense colors, and some areas that are softer and gentler along the strip. That's the beauty of this, is having some of those brights and then having some of the lighter. And you mainly just need it touch dry. You don't need it bone dry, just touch dry so that it's not smearing too terribly bad. So next up, we're going to add some stamped images and making sure I'm leaving some areas for some sayings. If you don't want to do any sayings, you don't have to. But that's kind of the journal part. So I'm just super happy with how this is. This is not usually my normal palette, as those of you who know me. But I love it. Oh, one thing. While I'm drawing this, I want to let people know is I heard from Bobby Bissett yesterday. She's finally home after going through 100% hell. She had gone in for some surgery. I want to say it was before Christmas. And I won't give, the details, but she went in for some surgery. There were some complications, and she has been either in the hospital or in a rehab hospital since the first of the year. But she is finally home. She almost died like 3 times. It's scary as padoodles, and with her being in a nursing home that long scared the crap out of me, because I was like, oh my god, with COVID going everywhere. But I do want to let everybody know she's recovering. She's got a long way still to go. Probably won't be as recovered as she's going to be for a few more months yet, but if anybody wants to send a card to her, I can pass that along to her now that she is home. When she was in the nursing home, she wasn't receiving the cards. They were being sent home with her husband. But I almost cried when I saw a message from her. So for those of you on Paper Doodles will know that Bobby is one of the squirrels. So our mascot squirrels. She's the voice of one of them. So, but I am just so ecstatic that she's going to be okay. So, I do want to do one other thing. You can use the squishy bubbles. The fact that I have any in my house that aren't squished is pretty darn amazing. The little ones work better, but I couldn't find any of the little ones. But you can also put, I'm going to do it with the blue, is you can spray on these. And it'll give you a cool texture. Well, the little ones work better. I squished too hard. These are kind of almost flattish. So it's a cool way to add. That one worked out a lot better. It's just kind of little dotsy doodles. So, there's ways, but it works better with the smaller bubbles. But that one came out cool. This is a bit of a hot mess down here, so when all else fails, I can always. Shh. There. Fixed. It works better with the small bubbles. I thought the big bubbles would work, but they are too big for this scale of this. They work fine on bigger sheets, but I do like this. There we go. That's more dots there. And the beauty of this too is if there is an area that you don't really like, you just whip out your white gesso and cover it over and do something else on top of it, and nobody will ever know. Yeah, just tear up the end. Nobody will know. It's 2 inches shorter than 6 feet. Who's going to know? Are you all going to tell? Because you can tell, but I will deny. Oh, wait, it's on tape. Oh, well. Yep, I admit it. I tore it off. Hey, creative opportunity. All right, so now we're ready to do a few little stamped parts. Now I'm going to use kind of that kind of background kind of stamp. This is like just a little script background. So I use that. And I'm going to use the stays on, even though it's in black. Remember, ink your stamp, don't stamp your ink. It's got a little too much texture. Is that wet? Okay. That's a dry stamp pad. Okay, well, I'm gonna fix that one. Going, why is that not stamping? Okay, well, brown's probably better anyway. Oh, here, let's. When she puts her entire hand on the stamp pad, this is one of Ken Oliver's India ink ones. This will work. Is this one dry too? Oh my goodness. This is what happens when you don't do stuff for a while. Well, what did I use the other day? Okay, this one's got ink. You need to refresh your stamps, Laura. There. And I'm just adding more of a little bit of texture here and there. Not a lot. And repeat it down the length so that you're getting it's a duplication type of thing that your brain looks for, a similarity. Okay, that works. Now that I have a ink pad that actually inks. Alright, so then let's take some of these bugs and stuff. So I'm going to have one little thing there, maybe another one down here. How many images do I need? 2. I think I'll do a few more, so let's do 5. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll use one of those. 5. So. So there's one. Let's do the B. I'm going to do one of these guys, and I'm going to do him right there. He's not going to have a saying by him, so he can just be all by himself. Let's just ink that one. I'm not being super duper careful on this. Oh, there's another spot to do another little one. Perfect. And then a big guy right. Let's do him there. Just like my stencils, I don't clean my stamps. But that doesn't mean you have to. If you want to clean your stamps, feel free. Yes, this is archival ink, so it's not going to go anywhere on me. Obviously, if you want to use color, you can. Cool. Alright, so this can go back into the basket. I mean, I used all butterflies and bugs, but you could use, pretty much anything you want to. Maybe if it goes with your sayings and stuff. So, scattered along. So I'm going to do a little saying there, a little saying there. This one I'll leave him solo, a saying, and a saying. Now, again, I'm not stamping my sayings this time. I am using these ones that I printed out. You can leave them this shape. I'm going to cut out the little strips of the words. So I like this one. What is meant to be will always find a way. Again, you find ones that speak to you. I did two of that same one. I like this one. I have traveled through madness to find me, which is definitely how I feel some days. I love this one too. Joy will appreciate this one. Birds born in a cage think flying is an illness. I'm gonna go with that. So I just need, I could probably fit. So maybe I'll just put something there. Let's see. Eventually everything connects. Let's go with everything connects. Kind of fits with everything. Kind of about my journey of refinding myself kind of thing. So again, I could just do these, but what I'm going to do is, I will show you this, I will cut out these words. That's why I left them even though they were on dark background. You could also type these out if you wanted to. So cut these bits and pieces apart. These are just done on copier paper. Nothing, not heavier than that, because that way it rolls up actually. Now these are easiest to attach if you use a glue stick. And my glue stick's not dried up. Yay! That was my, that's my repositionable. I'll grab that one. And they won't stick if you use a repositionable. Let's see if this one's dried up. It is not. Yay! And I'm keeping these a little messy. You notice I haven't busted a ruler out other than to tell you the size of the box yet. Aren't you proud of me? As you most know, I'm pretty much into control. So these are not. I can also bring in some, I'm going to use some of my oil pastels or my crayons and add a little bit of color onto some of the butterflies. This one, so that one says what's meant to be will always find a way, always. This one is I have traveled through madness to find me. It's weird how the creativity is ebbing and flowing a lot. I think there are some days, given our current world situation, I find myself angry, very angry some days. Like this morning, I was just furious. And sometimes I just let myself feel the anger, and then I'm able to let it go a little bit easier. If I try to just push it away, it just festers. But I also think part of the reason why I've been going through what I've been going through is for so many years in dealing with all the stuff that my kids went through between Trevor's issues and Sarah's health stuff, and I kind of pushed so much of myself, and then my business was just going not so crazy. So I kind of pushed so much of myself away. But now that everybody's doing well and stable, and other than a world pandemic and social unrest, I'm kind of pulling out some of that stuff from the past 11 years and letting myself deal with it. And as women, I don't think we do that often enough, so that's what I'm doing. And I realize it's kind of taken a break from all of you, but I needed to. See, and I like how those are looking on there. Give it that kind of journal-y kind of feel. Let's go, everything connects here. This is what I always say. Everything always comes together, and you may not always understand why it's connected, but it always, that's what I've always told my kid, always, eventually, everything will make sense. Let's cut this together. So I don't know if anybody's had questions. Sorry, I'm in my own little world here right now. Oh, no questions. I lost a bunch of people, but I know a bunch of people because they all know that I have everything recorded. They'll come back and watch the recording, and it's totally fine. Where are we at for time? Oh, we're doing good. We're 2 hours in and we're almost done. Okay, one more, and then we do our ends. Well, we have a little accenty doodle-daws to do. But again, these are just quotes off of Pinterest that I just printed out off of Pinterest. I don't know, this one just, that bird's born in a cage, think flying is an illness. So if, just because it's something that you've always known it to be that way, doesn't mean it is. And I don't know, something about that just spoke to me in these times right now. Again, I'm not going to go political, but it just spoke to me about what we're going through these days. We're all in a period of change. You could do something that was all the same from the same person. The quotes are all from the same person, or like these are all different. Some of them had an author on them, or who said them or wrote them, and some of them don't. This one's Alejandro Jodorowsky. So, all right, so there we got our little sayings on there. Again, don't be afraid to use your own hand to create those. And don't be afraid to, or you can stamp them. This is your own personal expression, so don't be afraid of any of that. So now I'm going to grab hot green crayon and smear it a little. Add some touches of it. Not a lot. I mean, you just want to have little touches. Maybe he's got it on his body. He's on his body. And then hold it way back out here so you don't have as much control over it. Maybe add just what are called marks. Just draw something on there. Gives it a little mark. But it's adding that little just, again, it's not a controlled, so we're not, you're going, if you hold it out here, you don't control it as much. This is an exercise in letting go. So, not a lot, just a little pop. And then I'm going to do my fluorescent, and I'm going to do my fluorescent orange because this is the opposite of the blues and stuff. So this is going to be just with my finger a little bit. Don't think. Turn off your brain for stuff like this. Just don't think. Just feel. Go with what your gut tells you, and then when your gut says one more, stop and don't do that last one. Okay, let's give it a last little dry. I'm just into the fluorescent in that it just pulls your eye along, and it's just, in person you can see it a lot better than it shows on camera, but in person it's just way cool. So but here, let me run you down it before I put the ends on it. So there's an image. And I could also add another butterfly over there. Maybe on this one especially, because he kind of came out with that background on there, I may put another butterfly over the top of him. Maybe I'll do it on some acetate and then put him on there. I'm playing with acetate right now and doing some stuff on the backside of acetate that I'm like just about to die. I'm loving it so much. And so we'll be doing one of these classes doing some stuff with that. So this kind of thing right now that I'm doing, this stuff, has been so rejuvenating. It's like it's recharging my batteries. So there's my 6 feet minus 2 inches, but we're not talking about those 2 inches. And so then I'm going to grab some black cardstock, and I'm going to cut it about 1.5 inches wide, so it folds over to 3/4. So I'll do 1.5 inches, that'll work. By the 2 1/4, which is the width of my tape. It is 2 1/4, right? Yep. I'm going to score it because I want a nice fold on it. It's getting toasty in here, and it's nice and all right, so fold that in half. Alright, I just rounded my corners. You can round them, you can square them, you can do nothing to them. Let's angle these because that's what I pulled out. So it can be like a tag. But you can leave it square. And then I'm going to grab a white, pen, white pen, where are you, white pen? Alright, which is my white pen? Okay, is it in my drawer? White pen, where are you? Okay, I have 5 million white pens until you want one, and there they are. It's like, of course. And I'll pull out the one that doesn't write. There we go. Now this is just because I have so much white that I want to tie in the white. So I'm just, and again, not perfect. Doesn't have to be perfect. It's got a little paint, it's got a little ink on there, and that's fine. So that gives me my little end pieces, just to give it a finished end. And then I will punch a hole in there as well, because then that will give me some fiber thing. So it kind of gives a finish to it rather than it just being ripped. That finished end gives it that handcrafted quality, as I like to say. As I say, handcrafted versus homemade. So, when in actuality, after I got done blathering on, this was just barely over an hour to do this, so including drying time. So, trim that a little cleaner. Doesn't have to be perfect. You could do both sides if you actually use white gesso. I don't mind having this stuff on the back, but if you did white gesso versus clear, it probably would make it opaque enough that you could do stuff on the back side as well. So if you wanted to, make it even a little bit more. But I do ask, if you're not a member of Paper Doodles over on Facebook, my private Facebook group, the only reason it's private is to keep the riffraff out. But I'm going to issue a challenge, is for people. We need to make Paper Doodles a little more active. It's been kind of slow. But I want people to be posting pictures of what they're doing. It's a private group. This is probably one of the most supportive group of people I've ever known in my entire life. And so don't be afraid. Show us what you're doing. Anything anybody does is 100% good enough, and I will only chastise you if you try to say, oh, it's not good enough. It didn't come out the way I liked it. You do not get to be your own critic. So, post. Let us see what you're doing. If that's something that's very uncomfortable for you, I'm going to challenge you to step out of your comfort zone and show us. So, and then I've just added a little bit of, I get crazy. It's hard to stop once I get one of these white pens in my hand. I want to just keep going. But I want you to all tune in a little bit to your inner voice, your inner, let it guide you. Let that, whatever it is inside of you, kind of help you along with this, and not, it's like turn off the part of your brain that pays attention to things, that put music on or something, but turn off that analytical side of your brain and let yourself, I can feel it switch back and forth. I'm weird that way. I've always felt that. But let your brain just kind of slide over to the other side a little bit. So now I don't have any fibers out, but I'm just going to go ahead and get this rolled up. Now, color-wise, it maybe doesn't exactly match with the box that I made, so I may end up, I typically would make the box after, and since this one came out more blue and purple than I was, I think, planning in the very beginning, it doesn't really go with the box, so I can make another box and maybe make a different roll-up to go into this box, because this is much more antique-y and this is much more bright. So I may redo the box, but then this just can set inside, and then you can have some way of closing the box. But even if it's only something for you and not for others, it's okay to make something that's for you. Maybe you write some, you don't have to show this if you do this, but maybe you put something there that is not necessarily a secret, but maybe it's a private thought or a private ambition or goal, and you can put maybe a multiple goals or bucket list or something, and you put that on this roll, and then you can put this in the box, and this is your own private box that you then can pull this out and remind yourself about something about yourself. It's something you could make. It would be fun to make for a very dear friend, that you can put some favorite quotes on it. Maybe you make it as a baby gift, or a wedding. I don't know if it'd be necessarily a wedding gift, but a little wedding something with meaningful stuff on it. Maybe it's to commemorate excuse me, an anniversary or something, but you can make it be just about any subject matter. It can even be something. Now, see, in unrolling this, I need something right about here, so I may add another, especially when I'm putting on my quotes by this method. I can add another one on here. If I were doing it where it's stamped, I need to make a white area, but there's a long stretch in here, and it needs something right about here as I'm unrolling it, and I didn't really notice that until I'm unrolling it, because I've got these close together here, so I'll probably add another one in there. But anyway, that is the little roll-up journal. Does anybody have any questions? Even if you only do one that's a foot or two long, that's okay. You can also do the same sort of thing. Let's take this other one, and I can redo it. We're running a little over, but once I've got a little bit more on this one, you could also take this and you can make it into, if you don't want to do a roll, if that roll is just too daunting or too cumbersome for you to figure out how to do that, just take a shorter strip. Still have enough to make one. So this is like a couple feet long, but I can turn this then into a little book. I can put a cover on it. It can stay an accordion, or I could turn it into little pages. And you can put little quotes on these little pages. So if you don't want to have it be rolling, you can turn it into a little book. We can even take if this were all done and ready to go. So I can just turn this into a little book that I can add stuff to. And I could put little covers, even if, especially if I did it out of like cardstock on the covers or lightweight chipboard, I could staple those on as well. So I could turn this into a little book. So same sort of thing. So fun, easy, little, just, I think right now, with the way the world is, we need some time to play and escape. And allow yourself just to be and let that inner part of you. I mean, some of you may end up doing images that are all very dark. I played with one that it was all blacks and browns and dark blues, because that was that anger that I feel some mornings coming out. So, let yourself feel those emotions, let yourself go through those emotions, and you'll end up being better off on the other side. And expressing them through sometimes differently than just talk can help. So anyway, so a book, whether you do it as on a roll or as a book, but playing with the machine tape, it's fun and easy. I mean, you could draw on this. If you don't want to use paints and stuff, you could totally just draw on it and stamp or add bits and pieces of different kinds of embellishments and that sort of thing if you don't want to paint on it. So, but it's definitely a lot of fun to play with. So it's been very cathartic, I have to admit. For me, it was one of those where I had to have it done. I had a deadline and I was in tears because I was not coming up with anything. So I've been playing with tag stuff a lot more than anything with this roll paper, but then I had a deadline and it was like, okay, I got to do this. So I just sat down and started playing, and it was very, very cathartic, I have to admit. It really did kind of help jog something in me to where I could start moving forward a little bit again. And that's never a bad thing. So it's fun. So hopefully you guys will get some, doodle art. You can do doodle art on here or something like that. So, but I want to see what you do over the next couple weeks. If you get a chance to play this weekend, great. If you can't play for a couple weeks, that's fine too. But let us see what you're working on. Let us see what you're doing. And I also want to say, if anybody is struggling, I can relate. I can try and help. But reach out. Nobody needs to know. If you need help, I'm here. I have people that I know that I can count on. I've been with my son and such. I've been through lots and lots of therapy sessions, that sort of thing, and I know the value. It's not weak to ask. So I just, if anybody needs anything, I will, no matter what, make time. So anyway, alrighty guys, hopefully this was been a bit of fun. Finally got my system up and running, not knowing that I had a janky cord the whole time. So anyway, so hopefully we'll be back. This is kind of the length of time, the level of projects that I want to do. Not all of them are going to be quite as messy, because we'll do some tidy ones as well. But sometimes just kind of letting go and loosening up helps. And you don't need a lot of skill. Or I know many people don't have the dexterity as much. I know my hands are I'm starting to feel it in my hands. Like doing 3D projects for some people is too much. Whereas doing stuff that doesn't require it to be so perfect is very freeing. And it lets people that maybe are not crafting as much anymore have an opportunity to do so. So, alrighty guys. Or the eyesight. Yeah, I know you've been struggling with that, Joyce. So even if it's just for you, it's okay. We're not going to judge. As I said, the Paper Doodles is a private group. And anybody who does make those kinds of comments, they're like, see ya. They will be gone. So, oh, good, Monica. I'm glad. So, anyway, everybody out there, please stay safe. This virus is not a joke. It's not just a cold for so many of us. So please wear a mask. If you need a mask, let me know. I will send you a mask. I don't care where you live in the world. If you need a mask, just let me know. I will send you a mask, or probably two. So I don't care what your politics are. This virus doesn't care what your politics are. It's proven it can make a difference. And I'm scared. I have dear friends in Florida. I have dear friends in Texas. And I have family members in Arizona. I have had a family member have the virus. Fortunately, she's young, she's healthy, and she's got through it. It was my nephew's wife. She came through on the other side. But this is unknown. We don't know how people are going to be 5 years from now, because we haven't met that milestone yet. So don't take it lightly, but stay safe. So everybody have an amazing rest of your weekend. It was delightful to get together with everybody once again, and thank you as always. Joy, 11 years now. I don't know, I'm gonna get emotional. I don't know what I'd do without you. Pam, you know how I feel about you as well. I also want to thank Christine. Christine is always jumping in and helping. And Lois, if you're out there, thank you, even though I know you weren't with us. I love you too. It feels good. I think I'll be back on more often. I just needed to take care of me for a little bit, but I miss all of you. So, stay safe, and we will see you next time. And you can keep an eye on Paper Doodles and on my schedule on my website, and I'll try to give at least 24 to 48 hours notice beforehand. And this video will be available. I have to add a few things to it, but it'll be available on YouTube, and I'll post it over on the schedule over on my website, so you can view it there. I'll link it over there. So, and I'll probably put it into the archives eventually as well. So I have a bunch of things that still need to go into the archives. More hours in the day, even though I spend a lot of hours going, what the heck? It's 4 o'clock. Where did the day go? So, anyway. Alrighty, guys, we will see you next time, and thank you, and I love you all. I've missed you all, and it's good to be back. So, love you. Bye for now.